I want to talk about organizations and how organizations can strive for and reach the future, a 10x future. So let me tell you very briefly about me. So at Singularity University, I oversee our enterprise business, our consumer business, so our open enrollment programs and events like this, and marketing. I've been here for almost 5 years. It's been a great privilege and joy. But this was my background. I hesitated to put this picture up here because I got to work on some incredible projects and had a really fun time driving innovation at some giant global brands. However, being an innovation leader, as some of you probably know, is a very lonely and difficult job. And so I found myself doing quite a lot of this, pushing the boulders uphill, right? But I had a career-changing experience in the spring of 2013. I actually have a picture of it. The chief innovation officer at Citi, who was working in the lab in Palo Alto, where I was working, was invited to attend a program at Singularity University. And she got sick, and I got to go. Little did she know, that sort of sealed my fate. So that's a picture of me sitting in a 4-day program amidst about 60 C-level executives from giant organizations around the world. And this was 5 years ago, so most of us hadn't seen a 3D printer. It's amazing to think of what's transpired since then. So we clearly had our minds blown by the technology, right? There were so many things that were happening in the lab today that we thought were 10 years out, that were going to impact our business, and so forth. All the things we've been talking about over the last few days. But what I found most interesting and profound was the conversations that we had over lunch, which were not about the technology. It was about how do we take these newfound insights, these perspectives, these ideas, this energy, bring it back to our organization and make change happen, right? These are giant companies. I sat next to the then CEO of Sprint, and I remember thinking, if you can't make change happen and you're the CEO, this is really hard, right? And so I decided then to leave corporate America and join Singularity University because I found it to be this very provocative platform for helping organizations make better decisions about their future. We could really inspire them to think differently and make different decisions. So that's the job that I've been doing for the last 5 years. What I want to do today is, actually, let me tell you the last piece of that story. So I left those 4 days, and I was pretty fired up, as you can imagine. I hope many of you are feeling that today. And I went back to the lab and to our chief innovation officer, and my hands were waving, and I was like, there's so many things we have to do differently, right? The future. And they were really excited that I had had a great time, and they told me to go write a blog post about it. And I remember thinking, it's not about the blog post, right? It's about so many other things that we have to do differently, and we have to start talking about it right now. And I tried my very best to convey everything that I had learned in those 4 days, to package it up and just transport it into their brains, but I couldn't. It was hard. Is anyone feeling like that? Yeah, how do I take this back and serve it up to my CEO or my team, my colleagues? It's really tough. And so the reason I'm standing up here today is to help you to do that better, to learn from my experience, and to I'd like to help you think through what to do next. What next steps can you take if you're a leader inside of a large organization trying to do what I tried to do 5 years ago? Okay. So over the last few days, you've heard Rob and others talk about the 3 fundamental things that we do. We transform how people think, we offer them a new tool set, new tools and resources, and we expose them to a new network of people who think and act differently. So I want to just touch very briefly on each of these as they relate to established organizations. So the first one is mindset shift. So I've thought a lot about this over the last few months because so much of what we've been doing with organizations in the last few years is telling them what to do. What's the playbook? What are the steps that I need to be doing, right? And what I've realized, what I've learned in all the work we've done with large companies, is that everything has to start with how to think, right? Because I can give you the best playbook in the world, but if you don't have that perspective shift that helps you understand what exponential thinking actually means, you can do all those things, but they're not going to be successful. You have to create different conditions inside of your organization for those playbooks to be effective. So what do I mean by mindset? What is an exponential mindset? How is it different from a linear mindset? Do I have to have an exponential mindset in order to do all of this stuff well? Do I have to abandon linear mindsets and frameworks and models? And the answer is no. You have to do both, right? So we're not naive enough to suggest that everything becomes exponential tomorrow. That's ridiculous. The ability to understand when a linear mindset and models, frameworks, perspective is relevant and when one needs to be exponential is a critical skill, right? The ability to toggle between linear and exponential to be ambidextrous is critically important. So in everything that we do with large companies, we always start with how to think, what that mindset shift represents. Next, we talk about what to do. So this is a visual representation of all the ways that we help large organizations. And I'm not going to spend my time up here taking you through each of these. I'm just going to give you a headline, but I'm also going to tell you where to go to get more information. So we focus in three main areas in our work with organizations, and they're not going to surprise you. We focus on strategy, on leadership, and on innovation. But we think about those very traditional functions in very different ways. You can see we're using this notion of 10x, and that shouldn't surprise you at this point. I just want to make a couple quick comments about some of the things that I'm particularly excited about up here. So when we hear strategy, we typically think of Porter's 5 Forces and management consulting, and it's not to say that those things aren't relevant, they're just not sufficient anymore. So in our strategy business, we help people see the future. In fact, we talk about it as future vision. Not developing a vision for your future, that's part of it as well, but like a superpower. I have future vision. I can see the future differently. I understand exponentials, so I can anticipate what is going to affect me. Once I do that, once I see the future, then I have to think very quickly, what affects me? What's relevant to me? What's the so what? How does this change my strategy? And so we have a whole set of solutions that help people sort of see the future and then think, what of those things are relevant to me? How do I work backwards and evolve my roadmap to get there? And then finally, we talk about narrative. And you've heard a lot about narrative over the last few days. It's something I'm particularly excited about because these organizations that are on a transformation, that have transformation initiatives, which I'm guessing is most of you, right? Most companies right now have a transformation initiative underway of some sort. You're trying to tell a new story. And you want that story to not be represented in a 97-page PowerPoint deck with, with bullet points, with 8-point font, and fabricated business case numbers, right? That's not inspiring, that's not compelling. These organizations are trying to tell a story that inspires and catalyzes their entire organization, and not just their organization, but their whole ecosystem, right? Their employees, their customers, their partners, their suppliers, their shareholders. That's a really big conversation that's going on right now. How do we get our shareholders to allow us, to support us on this different journey that we know we have to take? So we help them, organizations craft this narrative and figure out how to socialize it and then mobilize the entire ecosystem, which is really exciting work. And it's something that I think organizations take for granted, how compelling and inspiring and like a story that needs to be. We do a lot of work with leaders, developing leaders of the future. And instead of doing a 1 or 2 day program and off you go and we hope you retain those skills, we offer coaching. We talk about 10x projects so that you can continue learning in context of real work. We offer on-demand content and curriculum and courses so that you can keep learning as you do your job. So I'm really excited about how that's progressing because, of course, nothing changes without people, right? So we can have the best strategy, we can do the best innovation, but unless our people have the skills to really champion change, right, and to be stewards of the transformation initiative, none of this is going to work. And then, of course, we do innovation. We need to build new businesses, and of course, we don't work with Coca-Cola to develop the next creative flavor, right? We're not about 10%, we're about 10x. Although we do, of course, realize that quick wins matter to leaders, right? So we want to help companies achieve those quick wins while also leaping the market, leaping their competitors, and really building for the future, 5, 10, 20 years out. We have a membership program called Innovation Partnership Program. Peter mentioned it up here, IPP. IPP right now is for the largest companies in the world, for C-level executives who come together. They're non-competing. It's a safe space to have discussions and debate about the implications of technologies. And interestingly, there are a lot of projects and collaborations that come out of the IPP program because they all have different contexts and use cases, so they can think about and work on technology projects together. And then finally, you see this thing over to the side called Dash. Hopefully you've heard about Dash. I'd love it if you would go and watch a demo of Dash out in the expo hall. You can think of Dash like your mission control for this transformation journey that you're on. So Dash is the first SaaS platform that we've built at Singularity University. It's a complement to all the other things that I just showed you. Think about it like a crystal ball into the future. Think about predictive analytics and leveraging the knowledge of our whole global community to help you see the future, to help you see where technology is going, how things are converging, when things might become relevant. Think how valuable those insights are. We also have a bunch of diagnostics and learning opportunities, and it's a really, really exciting tool. I urge you to check it out. So the final component, the third leg of the stool, if you will, is the network, the community. And I personally, for me, this is the most differentiating, the most profoundly impactful thing that we do at Singularity University. You've all experienced a glimpse, a snippet of our global community because you're here. Like the diversity that I hope you've experienced over the last few days should help you understand how powerful it is to have this ability to tap into ideas and people and innovations and breakthroughs that are happening in the local university lab that you're never going to find out about if you weren't plugged in to this diverse global community. So our job is to harness this network and bring the resources to you, the exact resources that you need when you need them in the right context. The ability to tap into that network of uncommon partners, that's an expression that we use a lot at Singularity University because it's probably not the people that you're meeting at headquarters, right? It's different. You're meeting people that you would normally not encounter in your day-to-day, and that's by design. The best example I can share with you about uncommon partners is the work that we did with Lowe's and with Kyle Nell. I've decided Kyle Nell is the Kevin Bacon of innovation because he knows everybody. How many people know Kyle Nell? Yeah, I can see a bunch of you. So Kyle is probably the most impactful entrepreneur that I've ever worked with. He ran the Lowe's Innovation Lab, and he and I have worked together for most of the time that I've been at Singularity University. And what Kyle did, so he was charged with building this innovation capability inside of Lowe's, and he came to this IPP program and said, oh my God, I have to be plugged into this ecosystem because he got the value of being away from headquarters and surrounded by people who think differently. And so to summarize the last 4 years, I introduced Kyle to a bunch of startups and faculty members that, again, he would never meet walking down the halls at headquarters. Organizations like Made in Space, which led to the first 3D printer on the International Space Station. The first tool that was printed was a Lowe's sub-brand. We introduced him to Fellow Robots. You can see some pictures of the first couple of prototypes of the Oshbot, which is now the Lobot, the first retail robot. And he built that with us at Singularity University. And I think this really he's worked on comic books to tell the narrative of his future. Kyle and his team really embody this notion of uncommon partners. And there are a lot of different ways that we can bring that same value to you and your organization. So what do you do next to learn more? I'd love for you to do 3 things. First, right after I get off stage, the business leaders for all of the solutions that I talked with you about will be at the expo stage, and you can go and talk with them about strategy, leadership, innovation, IPP, uncommon partners, whatever interests you. The second thing I invite you to do is to attend Mark Bonchek's session at 11 o'clock today. It's called the Exponential Mindset or something like that. Mark I've never met somebody who makes this notion of mindset, of exponential mindset, tangible and real and practical. And he talks a lot not just about the new mental models that everybody needs to embrace in order to think exponentially and sort of think and act into the future, but how do you unlearn, right? Unlearning is something most of us, if we're not of the millennial and prior generations, we have to do. And unlearning is something that can be learned, right? It's a skill that can be practiced, but it takes time and coaching. And Mark is the best at helping people and organizations to do that. So I'm excited about that. So that's how to think. If you want to learn more about what to do, then I invite you to visit Nick Davis's session called something like Building the Exponential Enterprise of Tomorrow. It's at 12:45 p.m. over lunch. And Nick and his team will be there to go into great detail on some of the things that I've shared with you today. I have one final slide that I have to share with you. So if you heard Peter talking yesterday, he said something like, what problems do you want to slay because you can? And I love that language. I've never heard him use slay before, but it made me, and probably some of you, think about dragons and slaying dragons and the hero's journey, and I know that's come up a lot. I've felt this since the day I started at Singularity, and I just want to share it with you. Entrepreneurs are in a big spotlight right now. We talk a lot about how empowered the entrepreneur is, right? They have access to technology and the democratization of technology. They have unprecedented access to capital. They have bold, ambitious opportunities. It's limitless. Entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs. And it's always bothered me coming from corporate America, right? From big companies, because I was like that too. That's my mission too. And most importantly, when you think about what it takes to change the world, what it takes to solve some of the world's most intractable problems that need solving, think about what large companies have to offer. They have brand, they have capability, knowledge, distribution networks, they have capital, they have muscle, right? They just have to learn to get out of their own way, which is hard. And we help organizations figure out how to get out of their own way so that they can leverage that muscle to help us solve what are becoming existential threats in the world. So hopefully that feels inspiring to those of you that are pushing the boulders uphill. We would love to talk with you and to support you on your journey. Thank you so much for your time.